Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. And today, we are going to be tackling a true classic, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Oh, absolutely, a classic.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that you are already familiar with this one.
Yeah, I've read it a few times.
So we're going to try to go a little bit deeper with it today, maybe pull out some of the things that, we can apply to some of your current challenges that you're facing.
Awesome, I'm excited.
All right, so The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, published in 1989.
Wow, that's a while ago.
I know, right? And it's still so relevant today. It's crazy. It's not just about, like the habits themselves, like do this and then do that, but it's more about like this kind of underlying deeper, kind of philosophy almost.
Right, the principles
Yeah.
behind it.
Yeah. And speaking of challenges, you had mentioned that you've been feeling a little bit stuck at work lately.
Yeah, just kind of going through the
Yeah,
motions.
like just kind of like,
Yeah, almost like powerless, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting because that kind of leads us right into the first habit,
Right.
which is be proactive. But it's not just about, taking initiative, right?
Yeah.
There's something else going on there.
Yeah, it's more about a mindset shift, I think.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that there's things that you can control and things that you can't control, and focusing your energy on that circle of influence rather than that circle of concern that he talks about.
Right. So it's not about, all of a sudden having control over every single thing in your life, but it's about choosing like where to direct your energy.
Exactly. Picking your battles, as they say.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, think of that serenity prayer.
Oh,
Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage
yeah.
to change the things I can.
And the wisdom to know the difference.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
But that last part, the wisdom to know the difference, I feel like sometimes that's the hardest part.
Totally. It can be tough to decipher.
Yeah, so like, how do we actually apply this to something like that feeling of powerlessness at work?
Well, I think it starts with shifting your focus. Instead of dwelling on things that you can't control, like your boss's decisions or company policies, um, ask yourself, what can I influence? Could be your attitude, could be your skills, could be how you approach a task.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. I had a project a while back that I really wasn't thrilled about.
Oh, yeah.
But instead of kind of complaining about it, I thought, okay, well, this project needs this particular skill, so I'm going to focus on mastering that skill.
Nice.
And it didn't change the project itself, but it changed me.
And that's the key, right? Proactivity isn't always about changing the external world. It's about empowering yourself internally.
Right. Yeah. And that makes me think about the next habit. Begin with the end in mind. Because if you don't even know like where you're going, then how are you supposed to figure out, the right actions to take?
Right, exactly. It's like setting off on a journey without knowing your destination.
And Covey talks about creating a personal mission statement.
Yes, he does.
I've always kind of thought that those were a little cheesy.
Huh, I get that.
Like to boldly go where no one has gone before. But yeah. But seriously, what's the point of like a personal mission statement?
It's about uncovering your why. Not just what you want to achieve, but like what are the principles that are going to guide you?
Okay.
It's like having an internal compass.
So for example, if my why is, to make a meaningful impact through my work, then all of a sudden, like, a boring task isn't just a boring task. It's like, okay, well, this is part of something bigger.
Exactly. And it can also help you say no to things that maybe don't align with your values and free up more time and energy for the things that do.
Well, that's good. I like that. And that kind of takes us to habit 3, put first things first. And I know this is where he introduces that time management matrix.
Yes, the famous 4 quadrants.
And I actually use that in my life.
That's great.
But I'll be honest, I still struggle to really prioritize those quadrant 2 tasks.
Oh, yeah. The important but not urgent ones.
Yeah, they're always there.
It's a common struggle.
Like, how do we actually get out of that tyranny of the urgent and make time for this stuff?
Well, Covey says most people overestimate what they can do in a day and they underestimate what they can do in a year.
Oof. Yeah, that's me.
It's about making quadrant 2 non-negotiable. Schedule it in your calendar like it's a meeting with your most important client.
Oh, I like that. Which is,
Yeah, but and I also get caught up in this need to be productive all the time.
Mm.
So is there room in this matrix for just like downtime?
absolutely. We'll get to habit 7 sharpen the saw later.
Oh.
But even within this matrix, quadrant 2 includes things like recharging activities.
So like a hike in nature or reading a book?
Exactly. If those things contribute to your overall well-being, then they're quadrant 2 activities.
So they are productive.
Yes.
In a way,
I like this. I'm starting to reframe things in my mind.
it's about aligning your actions with your values,
Yeah.
your mission, and your need to, be your best self.
Awesome. So we've gone from this feeling of powerlessness to understanding proactivity, then to having this guiding purpose, and now to really like prioritizing our time effectively. What comes next on this journey of effectiveness?
Well, I think now that we've laid this foundation of personal effectiveness, it's time to start moving outwards, to shift our focus from me to we, and explore the habits that govern our interactions with others.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah, we've got a lot more to cover.
Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the 7 habits.
All right, so we've laid this foundation of personal effectiveness, but now what? Like, where do we go from here?
Well, now I think it's time to kind of shift our focus outward.
Okay.
Move from me to we and start to explore the habits that govern our interactions with other people.
Okay, yeah,
So,
that makes sense. I was thinking about this, and honestly, I've always struggled with teamwork.
oh, yeah.
Like, I feel like either everyone's trying to, like, be in charge, or everyone's just kind of, like, tiptoeing around each other and, like,
Mm.
afraid to kind of, step on toes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the classic dilemmas of collaboration.
Right, exactly.
And I think this is where Covey's concept of interdependence comes in. He argues that true effectiveness lies in moving from independence to interdependence.
Okay.
So recognizing that we can achieve far more together than we can alone.
Okay, so it's not just about being, like, a strong individual, but it's about harnessing that power of, like, the collective.
Exactly.
Okay, but how do we actually, like, bridge that gap? How do we go from me to we?
That's where habit 4 comes in. Think win-win.
Ooh, win-win. I've always kind of felt like that's a little idealistic.
Yeah, it can sound that way.
Like, isn't there always a winner and a loser?
It's a common misconception, I think. But Covey isn't suggesting that, everyone gets exactly what they want all the time.
Okay.
It's more about approaching interactions with the belief that there's a solution out there that meets everyone's needs, even if it requires creativity or compromise.
So instead of just, like, digging in my heels and, like, fighting for my own way, it's about trying to understand the other person's perspective and, like, find that common ground.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. Actually, when I think about it, when I do try to approach situations with that kind of win-win mindset, it actually reduces a lot of the tension.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of opens up possibilities that I didn't even see before.
Right. It fosters collaboration and it builds trust.
Yeah, that's good. And that makes me think about communication, which is really at the heart of habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Yes, one of my favorites.
Yeah. It's like before you can even try to find that win-win solution, you need to, like, truly get where the other person's coming from.
Absolutely. Covey was brilliant in recognizing that this is often where we stumble. We're so eager to kind of make our point to be heard that we fail to truly listen to the other person.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm so bad at that.
We've all been there.
I'm, like, already thinking about my response while the other person's still talking.
Exactly. But Covey offers some really practical tips for becoming a more empathetic listener.
Okay.
He emphasizes active listening, so paying attention not just to the words, but also to the feelings that are being conveyed.
So it's not just about, like, passively hearing the words, but it's about actually engaging,
Exactly.
asking clarifying questions, reflecting back what you've heard.
Yes. All of that.
Okay, yeah. And when you do that, it does create that sense of safety and trust.
Exactly.
And then they feel heard and validated.
Right. And that opens the door for more open and honest communication.
Wow, this is making me realize that this habit isn't just about resolving conflicts. It's about building stronger relationships, like across the board.
Absolutely. Whether it's with your partner or your colleagues, your kids, seeking first to understand is the foundation.
Wow. Okay, so we've gone from this win-win mindset to actually, like, genuinely understanding others. Now, how do we, like, bring it all together? How do we actually, like, achieve something remarkable with all of this?
That's where habit 6 comes in, synergize.
Synergize. I remember when I first read about synergy, I thought it was just kind of like a fancy way of saying teamwork.
Right. It gets thrown around a lot.
But it's something more than that, right?
It's teamwork taken to the next level, I would say.
Okay.
Synergy happens when people with diverse perspectives and talents come together, not just to collaborate, but to create something new and innovative that wouldn't be possible individually.
So it's like when a band jams together and all of a sudden they, like, create this riff that's more magical than anything they could have come up with on their own.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. It's about valuing differences.
Absolutely.
Respecting each other's strengths.
And being open to new possibilities.
Okay. That sounds amazing in theory, but I've been in so many group projects where it felt more like pulling teeth than, like, creating magic.
Uh-huh, right. I've been there too.
So how do we actually cultivate that kind of synergy in the real world?
Well, it takes conscious effort. It starts with building a foundation of trust and open communication. Everyone needs to feel safe sharing their ideas, even if they're unconventional or go against the grain.
Okay, so it's about creating that space where people feel encouraged to brainstorm and like build upon each other's ideas
Right.
without feeling judged.
Exactly. And it's also about recognizing that conflict can actually be productive
Oh,
when it's approached with respect and a willingness to find those creative solutions.
hmm. You know, when I think about the most successful teams I've been a part of, we did have that sense of trust.
Hmm.
And we weren't afraid to challenge each other's ideas, but we did it in a way that was respectful.
And it led to something better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the power of synergy.
In action.
Wow.
Mm.
This is making me realize that synergy isn't just like a nice to have. It's like essential for tackling these complex challenges
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
creating real progress in the world.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. The habit that sustains and renews our capacity to be effective in all areas of life.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground with these habits, from personal effectiveness all the way to the power of synergy.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
But there's one final habit, and this one I feel like often gets overlooked.
Yes. Habit 7, sharpen the saw.
Sharpen the saw.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we're not machines.
Right. We can't just keep going and going without maintenance.
Yeah. You need to take care of yourself.
We do, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yeah, when I first read about sharpen the saw, I don't know, I thought it sounded kind of fluffy,
Oh, yeah.
like self-care. Yeah, sure, but it's kind of a luxury, right?
Well, Covey would argue that it's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Okay.
He uses the analogy of a lumberjack who's trying to saw down a tree with the dull blade,
Oh, yeah,
and eventually gets harder and harder to make progress.
right.
So taking the time to sharpen the saw, while it might seem like a break from the task, actually makes the work more efficient in the long run.
So it's not about pampering ourselves. It's about investing in our capacity to, like, actually be productive and fulfilled.
Exactly.
Okay, but what does that actually look like? Like, sharpen the saw. It seems kind of broad.
It is broad. He breaks it down into 4 dimensions: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual.
Okay.
So physically, it's about taking care of your body through, you know, exercise, nutrition, sleep.
Right.
Mentally, it's about engaging your mind through reading, learning creative pursuits.
Okay.
Emotionally, it's about nurturing your relationships, practicing self-awareness, managing stress levels.
Mm-hmm.
And spiritually, it's about connecting with something larger than yourself, whether it's through nature meditation or faith.
Okay, so it sounds like there's no one-size-fits-all approach to this.
Yeah.
It's about finding what works for you.
Exactly. What nourishes and replenishes you in each of these areas.
Yeah, and making it a consistent practice.
Right. Not just something you do when you're feeling totally burnt out.
Yeah, Covey says to schedule it in your calendar just like you would anything else.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This is making me realize that self-care isn't selfish. It's like an act of responsibility.
Exactly.
If you want to show up as your best self, you got to take care of yourself first.
And the beautiful thing is when we prioritize sharpening the saw, it creates this positive ripple effect.
Oh, yeah.
You have more energy, you have more focus, more resilience.
Right. As we've been talking about all these habits, I keep thinking back to that feeling of powerlessness that I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
It's like each habit is a tool for kind of reclaiming your power,
Yes, in a way.
but not in a controlling way,
Mhm.
but in a way that empowers you to create the life you want and contribute to the world.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful way to put it.
This has been such a good deep dive.
Yeah.
It's like we took this classic book and like really pulled out the stuff that I needed right now.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts to leave our listeners with?
I do. Here's something to consider. Imagine a world where everyone embraced these 7 habits. A world where people were proactive and purpose-driven and empathetic. A world where collaboration and synergy were the norm. What kind of world would that be?
That's beautiful. Gives me chills.
Mm.
Well, it all starts with us, right? One habit at a time.
It's exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this journey of exploration. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in.
It's been a pleasure. Until next time, keep sharpening your saws and strive to live a life of effectiveness and fulfillment.